Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, March 30th, and this is the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. We'll continue today with the hearing of public testimony to provisions included in the DE amendment of Senate File 2673, which is the Senate's Public Safety Omnibus bill carried by Senator Limmer. As you can see in our agenda, there are a number of testifiers who will give verbal testimony today to the provisions in the bill. Testifiers, please keep your testimony succinct given the committee time constraints and to allow time for committee questions and discussions after testimony is completed. We'll hold questions until after the testimony is complete. Members, I also want to draw your attention to the numerous pieces of written testimony that's included in your packets and then also posted online. As a reminder, we'll be taking committee action on this bill on Friday, not today. With that, Senator Limmer, do you have any opening comments? Otherwise, we'll proceed with the testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you, the members, know, we made a presentation at our last meeting. This meeting is an extension of that discussion. Keep in mind that we are not going to be voting on this today. We're listening to comments of those that follow this bill, and that's the purpose of today's hearing. As you had said, there's also other comments in written form in our packets and available to the public via the internet, and I believe there might be some copies laying around here somewhere as well. But nevertheless, I see that we have a very lengthy list of people that want to give testimony. So instead of going over the whole bill all over again, I think what would be the best course of action is to hear from our testifiers.
Thank you, Senator Limmer. We'll then proceed to our testifiers. Judge Conroy, thank you. Please approach the table and give your name and proceed with your comments.
May it please the chair and members of the committee. My name is Lois Conroy. I am a trial court judge in the 4th Judicial District and president of the Minnesota District Judges Association. MDJA is a trade association which represents nearly all of the active and retired judges across the state of Minnesota. I am here today to express my gratitude for the priority that you have placed in funding the judiciary, the third branch of government, specifically the judicial and staff pay increases of 6% reflect the request made by the Minnesota Judicial Council and have been supported by MDJA. This request recognizes our highest priorities to support current court staff and judges, to attracting and maintaining our current quality workforce, and to keep Minnesota in the top tiers of courts across the country, which deliver access and justice to the citizens of Minnesota. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, your bill sends a really important message. I cannot express enough how important that message is to the judicial branch, that it is an important message at a time when we are tackling a backlog of cases, when we are engaging in unprecedented innovation. As you know, we have created virtual courtrooms across the state of Minnesota in which we hear legal arguments, take witness testimony, receive exhibits into evidence. We also allow for confidential attorney-client communications, all while creating a courtroom that is publicly accessible. I will share with you that this backlog and this innovation may be taking its toll. In 2021, we saw 16 judicial officers retire from the judicial branch. We are now barely into 2022, and we've seen the same number of judicial retirements. We are concerned in watching this number of retirements carefully. I want to also express my gratitude directly to you, Senator Limmer, for your leadership, but also for your comments recently of saying that the judiciary was good fiscal partners, that we have made sacrifices, and I just want you to know how heartwarming that is. We appreciate you championing this legislation for us. And I also want to acknowledge that, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the important conversations that your committee has had this year. And I recognize that there are important issues regarding judicial transparency and about the desire to have more effective tools to evaluate judicial efficacy and efficiency. I want you to know that we have heard those discussions, and we look forward to having ongoing dialogue with all of you. But I want to come back to my primary purpose here this afternoon, which is one of gratitude. And so, Mr. Chair, Senator Limmer, members of the committee, on behalf of all of my colleagues, we are deeply, deeply appreciative for your support of the judicial branch. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. I think we'll continue to go through to the next testifier. Mr. Reynoso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Edward Reynoso. I'm the Political and Legislative Director for Teamsters Local 320. We represent over 1,200 members in the judicial system. I'm here today to thank you personally and publicly, Mr. Chair Limmer, for proposing adequate resources for our court reporters, clerks, public defenders, assistant public defenders, and support staff that have been understaffed for far too long. Our members are an integral part of the judicial system. Having a fair and impartial court system protects the rights of everyone and fulfills a fundamental promise on equal justice under the law. It is in the best interest of our judicial system that these jobs aren't just training grounds for what some may believe are greener pastures. We want our members to stay in these jobs, and that these jobs are known as career jobs, not as stepping stones. Your budgetary proposal, Chair Limmer, puts this goal in its path. We thank you again for your support and your acknowledgement of this need. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Limmer.
Could I make one comment?
Certainly.
It would be timely at this time. Although I received personal thanks in the first testifier, it really should be a gratitude that's expressed to our committee regarding that particular budget item. For many years, I think our state government officials sometimes look at the judiciary as a government agency or a department. And we really have to remember its constitutional role as the third branch of government. It's foundational to our republic. It's foundational to our Constitution. And I just want to underline that theme, because it's vitally important to make sure that we have a strong, vital, and well-equipped judiciary. And I want to thank the committee for considering this particular line item for the judiciary.
Thank you, Senator
Thank
Limmer.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we'll call upon Mr. Sambre Lesnick. I'm sure I butchered that whole thing, so please correct me when you get on.
Hi, my name is Chambry Lesniak, and that's completely fine. I am an official court reporter for the Minnesota Judicial Branch and also a union steward. And I am here on behalf of Maverick, which is the Minnesota Association of Verbatim Reporters and Captioners, to voice my support for the 6% budget increase for court personnel. And I thank you for allowing me this brief opportunity to speak. Afternoon. I can tell you firsthand that this 6% increase is absolutely crucial in order to retain current employees and get new ones in the door. I'm a stenographic court reporter, so I'm a highly trained individual who was required to graduate from an accredited court reporting school before starting my work at the branch. Starting out, I also had to supply my own equipment. So I had to purchase my own steno machine and software, which cost up to $10,000. These both also come with support contracts that are billed annually, which has increased with inflation. The court reporters operate on a step scale. So when my judge hired me in 2014, I was hired at step 1 of 8. And we both kind of thought that after 8 years, that would mean that I would be at the top. But 7.5 years later, I'm at step 3 of 11. The past budget increases just simply haven't been enough to fund a step increase for the court reporters. So it's kind of created this lockstep situation where we're all moving up at the same rate with no clear path to the top. I don't know if I'll ever reach the top of the pay scale in the long run, but I do know that short term with the 6% increase, we will be able to move reporters up a much needed step for fiscal year 23 and increase the morale. So I thank the committee for your time and consideration and support on this matter and can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. Now, this name I will not get wrong. Judge Small.
Bob Short, no.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Robert Small, and I am the Executive Director for the Minnesota County Attorneys Association. Thank you for hearing our testimony today. I want to express our association's sincere and deep appreciation to Senator Kiffmeyer for her support and bringing this legislation to this bill and to the committee for supporting it as well. The resources that are included in this bill will directly contribute to our associations being able to make strategic and impactful advancements in training our prosecutors. We will be able to train new prosecutors to trial schools. We'll bring them there and employ an effort to train the trainer to account for our retiring workforce and ensure that we continue to provide the education and skill-based training to our lawyers that they need to contribute to improving the quality of justice for all in Minnesota. In addition, Mr. Chair, I would also add that our prosecutors continue to question the adequacy of the approach contemplated in this bill as it relates to the dismissal reporting language advanced by the Minnesota Chiefs Association. We believe that the criminal justice system's collective responsibility to administer and participate in constructive and system-wide information gathering and analysis should be done in a collaborative, goal-oriented fashion that is focused on system improvement and justice for all. We stand ready to continue that dialogue as this bill moves forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next up is Kyle Aldry. Please come forward and state your name for the record and proceed when you're ready. Yep.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Kyle Oldry, I'm the County Administrator and Emergency Management Director for Rock County. And I'm here to express my gratitude to the committee, Senator Weber, the author, and certainly Senator Limmer for including the funding for emergency management. On behalf of the 87 counties, the 11 federally recognized tribes, and the 4 cities of the first class, this is a huge step forward in allowing us to do preparedness, planning, and mitigation, critical roles for the protection of all residents of Minnesota. So we're very grateful and just want to express that to the committee, and I'd certainly answer any questions you may have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think we're going to hold some questions until afterwards, but thank you for coming and
Yes,
bringing your comments. Next up is Jason Anderson.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. And thank you, Chair Limmer and committee members. My name is Jason Anderson. I'm the Director of the Itasca County Probation Department and the President of the Minnesota Association of County Probation Offices. First of all, my apologies for not being there in person. I would much prefer to be able to testify again in person today. Had a family obligation this evening, and woofed, 7 hours of round trip driving for 2 minutes of testimony is sometimes tough to justify. But I am so appreciative of the funds that are allocated in this bill that are contemplated for probation and community supervision. Statute 24419 says that county probation offices are supposed to be reimbursed at a rate of 50%. It's been 26 years since that has occurred. 26 years, 1996 in the year of our Lord is the last time that happened. Think of the changes that our state has experienced in leadership over the course of that time. This is not a partisan issue, and appropriating enough funds to actually get us at or really near that 50% is significant. It represents a significant impact on public safety. Public safety is a hot topic these days, and as well it should be. The more effective and the better resourced your corrections agencies are, the more effective we can be. That's not an insignificant thing. The other thing I'd just like to express to the chair and to the committee is our appreciation for having us in some dialogue around how do we fix this long term? How do we not come back 26 years from now and be having these same conversations? This is an unprecedented time where our organization, which represents the county probation offices, MACAC, which represents mostly the larger metro agencies, and the DOC have really been working collaboratively with AMC on behalf of all of Minnesota to try and puzzle over this about not just, hey, we need more, but how is it sustainable? How is it equitably distributed funding? And how do we keep this going as a uniform or unified delivery of services to our community? So thank you. I'm excited about what this represents for us, and I would welcome any questions as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We'll move on to Mr. Ron Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ron Anthony. I am a county commissioner in Yellow Medicine County. I chair the 6W Corrections Board here in Southwest Minnesota, and I am a member of the AMC Public Safety Committee. And I thank you for allowing me to do this virtually as the weather is tough. And if you know my location, I can almost see Mount Rushmore from here. So it's a little bit of a drive. So I am here today on behalf of the Association of Minnesota Counties to thank Chair Limmer and the committee for including a much needed increase in probation funding in Senate File 2673. The entire probation system is significantly underfunded, and this boost is a key measure to ensure public safety in our communities at this critical time. Counties have come before your committee every year asking for funding and for a fundamental change in the way probation funding is distributed. This funding gets us closer more than ever. I'm here today to ask this committee to continue discussions around changes in how Minnesota funds probation. Minnesota needs one transparent formula that applies to every county equitably, regardless of which delivery system you're in. Until the model for determining funding need and the way funding is allocated is changed, counties and the state will be pitted against each other year after year for the same funding that is needed by all three systems. I've spoken with county commissioners throughout the state who, like me, are concerned at the county level as the state investment has remained flat for more than 2 decades. More money is a start, but unless funding method is fixed, we will be back here with the same broken system and similar related problems in the next few short years. All 87 counties, the Department of Corrections, and probation directors from all three delivery systems are united around this effort for the first time in a very long time. I know many of you support counties, and we ask that you continue supporting us as we work to make a better system to keep our community safe. Thank you again, Chair Limmer, for authoring this bill and for bringing this important issue to the forefront this year. And thank you, committee members.
Thank you very much. We'll next move on to Elliot Boutte. Please state your name for the record, and you can proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members. My name's Elliot Utai. I'm the Criminal Justice Coordinator at NAMI, Minnesota. And I wanted to thank you for the elements in this bill that will benefit people with mental illnesses. First, we're very grateful for the inclusion of funding for public defenders. We get a lot of calls at NAMI with loved ones in the court system, and we often tell them to tell their public defender whatever they can about their mental illness and their history. For people who don't have connections to their families, public defender is often the only person advocating for them in a confusing and intimidating system, especially around important constitutional issues like competency to stand trial and other advocating for proven alternatives to incarceration like treatment courts. We're also supportive of the funding for the community corrections. Mental health and substance use disorder treatment are very often parts of probation and essential in helping people re-enter the community and continue their recovery. We also wanted to support the request from the Department of Corrections, I think in your sent a letter today. As I mentioned before, families are a pivotal part of people recovering and re-entering the community. And we support the request to fund Family Support Unit and the funding for communication with family members. There was actually research done by the National Institute of Justice in Minnesota showing that people that had a connection with a support person while they were incarcerated had significantly lower risks of recidivism. We're also supportive of the Hometown Heroes program. NAMI's national office did some work with the Department of Justice and I think came up with best practices that are common sense, but they showed, first responders, particularly law enforcement, benefit from having support and treatment from people that understand what their job is like and know what they've gone through. As we've testified also before in this committee, we support the Youth Intervention Program grants, and we also support the funding for racially diverse youth shelters. And finally, because of the many appropriations in this bill, we wanted to raise one issue that we think should be included. Minnesota does not have a functioning system right now when a person's found incompetent to stand trial. Judicial branch spending rose on psychological exams from 2014 to 2018 over almost 50%, topping off at $6 million in 2018. Then there was another request made for $2 million more in 2019 just for these psychological exams alone. And there's been widespread agreement that this is because of the rising number of people found incompetent. And not only does the court system pay, but our counties are paying every day upwards of $1,300 a day per person when a person's in the state hospital and they need to be released back to the county. And of course, also we have law enforcement, prosecutors, public defenders, community mental health providers can all attest to the cost, the financial cost and the human cost when we have people charged with misdemeanors who are found incompetent. Their charges are then dismissed and they're returned to the community with no support and no guidance and no requirements from the court. So with that dire situation, we're just asking that you would hear Senate File 3395 that would create these systems and fund this really important system in our state. So that concludes my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And online, we have Paul Munair. If you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Paul Munier. I am the Executive Director of the Youth Intervention Programs Association. Senator Limmer, I'm here to just say thank you for being courageous and taking a chance at trying to cut the need off before it grows so much that you have a difficult time trying to fund everything that is so important in the state under the judicial branch and public safety. By investing in young people that are likely to engage in criminal activity, you are really getting at the heart of the problem. And I just give you so much credit for seeing that there is another alternative here to try to stop the demand for all the things that are almost impossible to fund on a regular basis. So on behalf of all our members throughout the state of Minnesota and thousands of young people, I just want to say thank you. The $3 million that you allocated will positively impact 15,000 young people, Senator Limmer. That's no insignificant thing. That's going to really reduce the short-term and the long-term demand on public safety needs. And also, please consider what that does to them personally. It gives them hopes. It gives them a chance to connect in their community. And we all win when our young people have the ability to find their niche and find their way within their community. So I'm grateful. And that's all I have to say. I was going to be very brief.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll move to Lisa Walker. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members for your time today. My name is Lisa Walker. I come before you today as a victim of crime. I also speak here on behalf of my 21-year-old daughter. On September 3rd, our lives were forever changed when 3 men entered our home in Southeast Como. They held us at gunpoint, threatened to kill us, robbed us of everything we had, and stole my car. What those 3 men stole that night, there is no amount of money that could replace. They stole my 21-year-old University of Minnesota 4.0 student's confidence and replaced it with fear. Her PTSD from a gun pressed into her forehead is so severe, she has had to withdraw from in-person classes at the U and does not sleep through the night. I am here to share some details of our situation. Roughly 6 hours after our home invasion, a 21-year-old felon on supervision for a similar crime was apprehended in my vehicle due to a multi-agency effort after committing a felony flee in Ramsey and Hennepin counties. This individual was released from jail with no charges. I learned that he was a juvenile when he committed his previous crime, but yet his gun charges were dismissed. When I reached out to his supervision office of record in Mankato, I learned they did not even know he had been arrested. When there are repeat offenders of violent crimes, especially those involving a gun, how can charges like a gun offense be dismissed? Why is there not better technology to alert the different departments so that different agencies can cooperate and support one another? It is a known fact that these type of repeat offenders know exactly how to use the system. They operate on a risk and reward basis. This must stop. There have been so many breakdowns in our case. I guess I'm fortunate to have not been a victim of crime before, but what I have learned and what I have experienced is a system in complete failure. Without serious consequences, this man and many like him are back on the streets terrorizing people like myself. Maybe they even feel emboldened. The public is crying out. The police can't do it on their own with their skeleton staff. Our investigator was handed 122 cases the day she received ours. The crimes mentioned here, armed home invasion, threatening us with a gun, stealing our car, a felony flee, committing all of these, committing a crime while in custody status. As a layperson to this world, I just do not understand. I support programs. I believe we need more job skills training and support for people incarcerated. I believe people are capable of change. I've heard you can't incarcerate your way out of crime. Prison is not the answer for all. I do believe that. But how can anyone not want to bolster efforts to stop these repeat offenders from offending? Probation is not working in some of these situations. It is not showing to be more successful. As a victim of crime and a novice to this whole world, I have seen Minnesota to be lots of lanes moving independent, unwilling or unable to change lanes to bolster public safety. It is absolutely maddening. I'm here today to urge bipartisan support of any and every crime bill to help our crying state. The University of Minnesota students a vulnerable population of people. The rates of crime are staggering. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to Jeff Potts.
Mr. Chair and Committee, my name is Jeff Potts, and I am the Executive Director of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association. We represent 300 police chiefs, about 150 command staff members across the state, and I am here today with our President, Chief Eric Werner, to express our appreciation and gratitude to Chair Limmer and the committee for several items in this bill, and I'll talk specifically about a few of them. We very much appreciate the recruitment and retention components of the bill. Currently, there are between 1,200 and 1,500 open police officer positions in Minnesota. We've seen a drastic increase in retirements and people leaving law enforcement over the last year or two, and we think that these pieces, these components will be very helpful, including the pathway to policing funding increase, the marketing and retention, or marketing component, and the skills training grants from in-skill schools that are teaching law enforcement, which have also seen a significant decline in enrollment over the last 2 years. We do feel these areas of the bill will be very helpful in trying to restore the pipeline for people who want to get into law enforcement, but also retain those who are currently in law enforcement. The mental health for first responders components is also much appreciated. Just a quick bit of data. In 2021, there were 307 duty-related disabilities in public safety. Those are through the Public Employees Retirement. 80% of those were for PTSD. 93% of those were from law enforcement members. And this funding will be very helpful in that area, we do believe. We appreciate the body camera funding. Currently, there are still about 50% of the police departments in Minnesota who don't have body camera programs. This funding, which we hope that there could be additional funds perhaps added to pay for or help those agencies acquire body camera technology and pay for the data storage, which is a significant portion of the cost of a body camera program. We appreciate the component in the bill that addresses transparency in prosecution or dismissal data. We look forward to additional conversations on that. As we just heard from the previous testifier, that there are some areas that I think we can improve in data collection, which does allow for more transparency and trying to figure out how effective those decisions are, I think can be helpful. But we do appreciate the testimony from Judge Small and look forward to continued dialogue throughout the rest of the session on that. And lastly, I will point out we very much appreciate the components of the bill that deal with the recent crime increases, the funding for the violent crime enforcement teams, and the other pieces of the bill that deal with what we're all hearing and seeing on a daily basis, which is dramatic increases in crime. For all of these reasons and many others, Mr. Chair, we appreciate what you've done in this bill and to the committee, and look forward to further dialogue on all of these. I'll stand by for any questions that you may have later in the hearing, but appreciate your allowing us to testify here today.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Director Hutton. Please state your name and proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Senators. Thanks for the opportunity to appear in front of you today on this bill. My name is Bill Hutton. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Sheriff's Association. I represent the 87 elected sheriffs of Minnesota. I'm also the retired sheriff of Washington County. Thank you, Chair Limmer, for bringing this bill forward. I would like to speak to and express our gratitude to a few of the items provided in the bill. Chief Potts has already gone through over some of them, so I'll try to hit them at a real high level. 50% of the sheriff's offices as well do not have body-worn cameras. I did a real quick survey to find out why not, and it's money, money, money. So as you can imagine, many of the smaller counties in the state do not have the funds to be able to have the body cameras for the data and or the equipment themselves. We appreciate money being dedicated towards the Interstate Compact. Sheriffs, all 87 sheriffs travel across this country, picking up individuals whom had violated their Minnesota probation. or supervision. So they are traveling to Oregon for $3,500 to pick up an individual who committed his or her crime within the state of Minnesota. However, supervision is happening out there. So it's can be, as you can imagine, a $3,500 bill for Rock County or Kitson County or fill in the blank of a smaller county is a significant thing. The money towards marketing, recruitment, and retention. I did another survey of my sheriffs as well, and it's not a pretty picture. We have openings all across the state, as a chief I've already talked to, but it's not only the licensed peace officers, it's also the telecommunicators, and it's also the corrections officers. So we are hurting drastically in those two areas as well. We have some PSAPs that are unable to operate at 24 hours now because they have to transfer their calls other places, other counties that have it. And we have jails that are having to transfer folks out of their jail as well because they don't have the personnel to provide supervision. The chief had already talked about the responding or mental health monies, very much appreciated. I talk to sheriffs on a daily basis on this issue. We appreciate the money for the violent crime task force, enforcement task force. I'll step a little bit out of my lane here, but I also want to talk about the youth intervention monies. Sheriffs are 100% behind that, and any monies that you can provide to YIPA to distribute to the programs across the state is very much appreciated. I can personally tell you, I know the value. Prior to my law enforcement experience, I was a executive director of a community-based program that provided counseling services to children and families. And I was also the chair of the YIPA board of directors for a while as well. So I personally can tell you, and I personally know the effects that it has within our communities. We also appreciate monies being towards skilled trainings and grants. In 2021, Minnesota Sheriff's Association provided 24 grants to individuals at $2,000 apiece to be able to afford to go to skills. That's significant to a nonprofit like ours to be able to provide those grants to young people to get into public safety, to get into law enforcement. I also will put a shout out for and appreciate the monies that is going into community supervision. Sheriffs work every day with community corrections, and we know that this is a systems approach. So we are appreciative of the monies that are going into that. But again, Chair, thank you for everything you're doing in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Fletcher.
Mr. Chair, members, I've been coming here since 1983, and this is the most impactful crime prevention bill that I have seen. And I want to thank you all for that. But not only is it the most impactful, it has never been needed more than it is right now. The last 2 years in our metro area, we've seen skyrocketing crime rates, carjacking. I hope we all remember Lisa Walker's testimony, because every single day, someone has a gun stuck in their face, in their chest, in the metro area as a part of their car being carjacked. Last night it happened at Chicago on Lake, 5:00 p.m. Woman getting into her Mercedes. She calls the police in Minneapolis. The police are all tied up. She waits the first half hour for the Minneapolis police to come because they don't have enough squads. She finally decides, I'm going to track my own car. So she calls Mercedes, she gets the Mercedes tracking, and then she calls us because it's in Ramsey County. So we activate our CAT team, our carjacking and auto theft team, and begin tracking it. There's a delay, of course, in the pings, and we're close to catching them while they're out there with their carjacked car in West St. Paul. They robbed someone just across the Dakota border there at Annapolis, and the gun is implied there as well. We eventually do catch up to them at 1024 Ross. Unfortunately, They have just bailed out of the car, and we do not apprehend the suspects. We sit on the car, we try to watch and see if they come back, of course, to see if we can apprehend the offenders. And while we're sitting there, another stolen car drives by, which of course we do pursue and apprehend. That car was taken in a carjacking the day before over at 720 Central. This is a daily occurrence. This is real life for Lisa Walker and others, and we need to make some impact on what's going on. This bill actually does that. It gives us the resources to make some difference. It recognizes carjacking. It increases the crime of fleeing the police, which is a big problem for us. As I sat here today, there was a chase out of Washington County. It was going northbound on 35, State Patrol, and our deputies trying to chase it. I don't know, is it over? It's over, they got it. They caught it. So on a regular basis, this is happening. What I want you to know is some of these pieces of this bill where you talk about auto thefts used in other crimes. These stolen cars are used in other crimes on a daily basis. Your recognition of making those offenses be chargeable is huge for us. So I want to say to the prevention advocates, I'm a long-term advocate of prevention, intervention, and suppression. It's a three-legged stool in law enforcement, and we have to do all. And you're doing that in this bill. The increases to VSET, the State Patrol aerial assistance, huge. The crime prevention grants, the youth intervention grants, Shot Spotter, of course, is a critical thing, and the retention of our officers. But I also want to say that your funding of probation is critical. I can't tell you how important it is for us to work with the probation officers in order to keep these offenders within the lines and to be able to corral them and intervene when they're not. So thank you so much, Senator Limmer and members, all of you that participated. It's a great bill.
Thank you, Sheriff. With that, that is the list that I have before me. Are there any other members of the audience who'd wish to testify today? Seeing none, we will move to member questions then. Members? Not everybody at once. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm interested in finding out from either Sheriff Fletcher or Mr. Hutton regarding capturing of individuals who you come to find out have mental health problems. I'm very concerned about my sheriff in Wright County and the police chief in Buffalo. Fact is that they have no place to go with these individuals. And I'm just wondering on a daily basis, and I see we have some money set aside for mental health treatment, but I just wanted to get a temperature gauge from both of you as to what your experience is.
Would either of you want to?
I'll go after Bill. He reminds me how he's smarter than me all the time.
Director Hutton?
Thank you. It's a battle every day. In Minnesota, we have 78 county jails. There are 9 counties that do not have a county jail. They contract with other jails within the state. This is a #1 topic. While I was sheriff in Washington County, I would venture to guess that more than 50% of the individuals that were in my jail had a mental illness. And I couldn't even tell you what my pharmacy bill was at the time. I know that my medical bill would continually go up every year. I will say that we have individuals in our jail that there is no way they should be in our jail because of their mental illness. We have individuals in our jails that they have a Rule 20 and they're supposed to be out of our jail within 48 hours, and 80, 90, 100, 120 days, they are still in our jail and they're not getting the treatments and the counseling and the intervention that they need. They're not getting any better in our jails. So it's a significant problem.
Mr. Chair.
Senator
Mr.
Anderson,
Mr.
Senator
Hutton.
Anderson, would you reference the portion of the bill that you're speaking to, please?
I'm looking on line 65. It says mental health treatment, law enforcement, and first responders.
Thank you. That's helpful. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hutton, so does your sheriff team have to go out of state to find people to help these individuals? Or, I mean, you just said that several people are sitting in jail longer than they're supposed to be. There's no remedy, it sounds like.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Limmer.
Senator Anderson, I don't think we understand your question. You're asking about defendants that are in jail at the current time and the mental health
Mr. Chair.
quality they're representing?
Senator Limmer, yes, regarding that, I see that we have money that's set aside for mental health treatment. That's the title of it. I'm just asking, is this going to help in regards to day in and day out situations?
Okay. Senator Bingham.
Senator Anderson, I think that's for treatment, mental health treatment for our first responders and law enforcement. We had a bill in here that appropriated, $1 million to the mental health services for our first responders and law enforcement.
For the Heroes Helping Heroes program.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. That's good. We need that for our officers, but I'm also talking about not only the officers, but the people that we incarcerate. And so I'm just wondering, do you then, in order to find help for maybe the officers themselves or for the incarcerated, do you have to go out of state to get help for them?
Director Hutton.
Mr. Chair, Senator, there's multiple questions within that one. So yes, sometimes we do go out state for officers who are in need of mental health services. However, we do our best to find it within state. And with regards to individuals whom are in our custody, in our county jails, often counties hire third parties to provide services within the jail to provide them mental health services. However, I can say this, it's never enough.
Thank you.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Lisa. Lisa, who is one of our testifiers, I think her name was Lisa Walker. Is she still available?
Ms. Walker, are you still available?
I am.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Yeah, thank you very
question.
much, Ms. Walker. I think, in talking about your son in particular on the University of Minnesota campus and some of the things that he did, my question is, for you, what's your number one goal in helping to keep those students, families, and other people safer? What would you address in regards to that?
Ms. Walker.
Well, I'd say the immediate need is to bolster the police department. They simply cannot keep up with the level of crime. I contacted all of the council members in Minneapolis just 2 days after our event, and I urged them to go watch the body cams of the police officers who responded to our situation and to listen to the 911 call. We actually were hiding in the basement because we thought that they had still entered the home again, and it was terrifying. I felt like I was on one of those drama shows on TV. And so, I mean, absolutely, number one, we have got to support them, but also the investigators, because, every repeated call, they did come in and do a DNA search on our home. And every call I asked, what has been done and what has been found? And it's just this long list of unanswered questions that victims of crime like myself have. And through digging and learning and trying to do a crash course in this failed justice system that we have in Minnesota, I have learned of so many failures and lack of agencies bolstering each other. It seems like everybody is doing what they say is their job, but nobody's working together to solve these problems, which is why I'm here today, because I feel like it's imperative that these bills get passed to provide some support and strength to those people out there working so hard, police officers whose cars are getting rammed, who can't do their jobs. So I think I also do think that what I've learned of supervision roles and probation, I feel like those departments need so much more support. And I learned of something that used to be effective, where a probation officer would find out that one of their people had committed a crime, would have contacted and asked for a 7-day warrant in order to hold that individual so that the strapped police and investigators have more time, because he was able to walk out of the jail with no charges because there was nobody to do the job.
So, Mr. Chair?
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Walker. I think it is amazing when you see a regular citizen coming here and obviously has done a lot of research, a lot of homework to help yourself and your family, to know the terms, to know all of these things. Takes a tremendous amount of effort. But in fact, the system is supposed to be doing that for the victim. That's who's supposed to be doing it. That's why we fund it. The courts, the sheriffs, the police, probation officers, and all those. And while I appreciate many times, and I do, so much of the work they do, but sometimes the communication with the victims is not on the to-do list. And that needs to be on our to-do list, that we do have communication with them, let them know what's happening. And so, Ms. Walker, I'm so sorry for you and your family, and what an extremely difficult, traumatizing time you've gone through. That's the incident in regards to what happened. But then there's the after effects of trying to get justice and to follow through. And I know that in this room today, online and in this room, there are a lot of people that are part of that system that are here today, hearing your testimony. So right now today, Ms. Walker, you for your family and for many other victims are here today speaking to people who are exactly part of that system and have that power to make changes even without statute. These laws are important and necessary that are in this bill, but there are other things that are within their authority and their power in the courts, law enforcement, a variety of ways like that. We're working to give them the tools to support them and do that, but they also have choices to make and to remember the victims and the importance it is of them as we go through this, their mental health, their trauma, their things, and you are speaking to that today, Ms. Walker, and thank you very much for your taking part of your own personal time and efforts to be here and do so. It is much appreciated that you've been a voice for victims. Thank you very much, Ms. Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Thank you, Ms. Walker. Senator Bingham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank Chair Limmer for including the community supervision and probation supervision funds in there. That's my bill. I'm very proud of that. And I don't need to echo what the commissioner and what law enforcement has said about the importance to that. It's definitely time to have that done and appreciate that. The other thing I would add about mental health in our jails and mental health in our communities, Mr. Chair, is data sharing between law enforcement and mental health providers. And I'm very appreciative of Chair Matthews tomorrow in his committee having Senator Howe, his bill being heard, that will hopefully help clarify that and allow for that exchange. to be clear, because that also is a big component of being able to deal with this issue that every department in law enforcement has struggled with. And I really feel that between that and some of the other items that are in this bill, that hopefully we'll be lending some support to that crisis, literally, that is in our communities and that law enforcement end up being the front line of defense for.
Thank you. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quickly, I appreciate the bill, Senator Limmer. I agree with everything that's here. Just want to reflect, if I can, or get at least members to listen to what happened right here in this committee. I mean, an apprehension occurred and hopefully in a safe manner, and somebody didn't get hurt. But what's bothersome to me about the testifier, the sheriff, when he was up here talking about that person having to run down their own assailants. And folks, if this is going on more and more and more, vigilante comes to my mind. What's going to happen if we don't have enough resources to answer and protect the public, and they're going to go out there and take things into their own hands? That's concerning. And Senator Anderson, you are so right. We all remember Senator Goodman and what she thought about getting more beds for emergency mental illness. And I'm on the way out. I'm riding off into the horizon. However, I would encourage the Sheriff's Association to get with you and others that are going to be on this committee next year, that would put together some kind of a program that we can deal with mental illness with regards to sheriffs and lockups. I don't think we're hearing even a portion of what the liabilities that have gone on, the lawsuits that have gone on in the counties. And I'd like to see that number. We can do that offline. But to prevent more of that happening in our county jails, where these people should not be actually confined, I think is a huge responsibility. And we need to back up and really take a look at that, to provide that service, because it's going to cost a lot of money if we don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. Senator Latz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members. And I said this the other day, and I'll reiterate, there's a lot in this bill to like. There really is. In my view, there are a few pretty significant clunkers in the bill, as I've already expressed as well along the way. And there are some things that I think ought to be in the bill that are not. I just wanted to call, we'll deal with some of those on Friday, I think, as members start to look and consider amendments to the bill. But I wanted to call members' attention to a letter from Commissioner Schnell from the Minnesota Department of Corrections, which I believe should have been provided to members. I don't know if it was distributed in the packets. But at the top of the list of what he's concerned about that's not included in the bill is their request to create a statewide public safety data infrastructure. The Department of Corrections has an antiquated system, multiple parts that simply cannot talk to each other. The way they put it, they are incredibly data rich with public safety data points, but unfortunately we are simultaneously information poor. They simply don't have the technology infrastructure that's current enough to be able to access and understand the data that's there. And I think if we want to continue to make well-informed and educated decisions here in this committee about criminal justice issues, we need to be able to have that data, as do the policymakers at the Department of Corrections. The way they've described it, DOC is left with antiquated technology on safety and security, programming and treatment, and supervision, among many others. And they indicate that often current platforms cannot be updated with modern tools and efficiencies, and many systems still use fax machines. So it gives you an idea of how old these systems are. You know, it's very easy when we look at budgets to put off technology investments. But this legislature wouldn't function without modern technology investments. I don't think it's fair to expect our agencies to, in particular when you're dealing with corrections issues and incarceration of people and wanting even to know who's on probation, where. We want our corrections officers, our probation agencies to be able to do name searches and find people that are on probation in the adjacent county, and they can't even get that kind of data easily. We run into issues like what Ms. Walker testified to, where a PO in a different part of the state won't even know there's an arrest made of one of their probationers. So I would encourage us to consider, and we can have more about this conversation tomorrow or Friday, I think, but I'd encourage us to look at their funding request, which was $12 million in fiscal year '23 and $35 million in fiscal years '24 and '25 to make those kind of critical investments. There are other things that they've supported that are, some of which are included in the bill, including the 3 delivery systems for county supervision for people on parole and probation, the body-worn camera funding they've included. But there's some other things in their letter also that are not included, which I think it's worth taking a look at. So I wanted to call members' attention to that, maybe as a predicate for our conversation on Friday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Latz. And for us millennials that might be sitting on this committee, a fax machine, could you describe what this, no, we're good. Further questions?
Can I tell you what an album is, too?
While you're at it, yes,
While I'm
please.
at it.
See no further questions. Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all the testifiers who came and made their comments. Senator Latz brought up the subject of process. We're in the middle of the process, as I began to address before we heard from our testifiers, and we're not done. We have Friday to go before we finish this particular bill. And process does require more discussion, more consideration, and other options that we may consider. So evidently, we'll all be here on Friday. I would prepare everyone for a long day. Bring a lunch. I don't have money for pizza or baby back ribs. But nevertheless, I hope to do good work on Friday and certainly want to hear from as many people as possible. So thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of the testifiers once again for coming down to the state capitol in person, which is exciting for me because that's really who we do the service for. And so thank you again.
Thank you, Senator Limmer. With no further business before the committee, we will adjourn and see you on Friday.